Hello there, welcome back to the little art room. Today, I'm hoping I'm going to make a shorter video that is going to be about a shorter comic. This little comic was actually inspired by my period tracking app, which one day when I went on it, it asked me, "How are you feeling today?" And I selected sad, and it came up saying, "Your feelings are valid," and this is the third most common mood that people track in the app. So I kind of decided to make a little comic about that, but in the comic the character decides to select lonely because that is actually how I was feeling on the day, and that was like the predominant feeling, but they didn't have that in the period tracking app, so in the story of my comic that is what the person selects. So my plan for this video is just to make this comic and maybe talk about loneliness a bit and ramble on, because you know I love to ramble on. So I was able to put my wooden hand to good use already, using it to help me draw the character selecting the mood, and it is a bit boring to watch, but this kind of quite boring planning out of where the comic, how it's going to be laid out basically, is, you know, quite a big part of the process as well. And then, yeah, I got into drawing a couple of panels that had faces in them. I actually ended up making this a self-portrait because I did feel like, you know, it was a reflection of like a genuine experience, I guess, that I had that was in my life. So why not draw myself? Makes it a bit like more personal, I guess. Colour is my absolute nemesis in art. And I wasn't liking the hair either, so I actually changed the hair. I wonder if honestly it's because I hardly ever wear my hair up that it was looking a bit strange to me. But yeah, the colour choices went back and forth, over and over again. Colour's really difficult. I find colour very difficult. Even when I'm working from a palette, it still somehow is difficult. Finally decided on a green jumper, which is actually a really similar colour to a jumper that I've got, so maybe that's why it worked. Deciding the colour of the laptop screen took me ages. In the end, I simplified it down. So yeah, very simple concept of like being asked by apps and things like that, like how you're feeling, and you know, the responses it may give, and also I did a bit of research on like how many people they estimate in the UK right now like feel lonely often or all the time. That's usually the statistic that comes up, and it is just below about 4 million people. But I reckon that is actually a really low amount, like estimate, like it's you're basing that number on the strength of that survey, aren't you? Like, which I reckon the number's actually way higher than that. I was only talking to my friend yesterday about how, like, you know, even though my comics have like quite a whimsical vibe in a way, I often like to explore quite serious topics, and it's just because I like that these things to be talked about in a genuine, honest way. I think sometimes we really shy away in society from talking about difficult things, and I just don't like that, and yeah, so I guess often that's why things get called melancholic, because I feel like I combine like the yeah, something that may just on the face of it look quite cheery but can actually be talking about something quite sad or serious. It's not necessarily that I'm in this like dark mental state or anything, this bad mental state. It's just I like to explore those topics, and it's real to me and it's everyday to me. Yeah, I feel really grateful that, like, in terms of friendships, like, I have friendships now that I didn't have like a year ago. Like, there was a point a year ago where I really had no friends at all. Well, where I lived, I had no friends where I lived, and there was nobody to really spend time with in any way. And you know, that was quite a hard period of time. You know, because I'm quite solitary. Like, I like time on my own. Sometimes I would say to myself, I like being on my own, it's fine, I don't need anyone, kind of thing. But actually over time I realised that I liked being connected with people, and I really like knowing people on a quite a deep level, or quite like really connecting with people. But it can take a while to find that, and it can take a while to develop that relationship. But you know, again, there's like in the past I had a lot of loneliness, I think, around feeling that I couldn't be myself with people, and that was in a lot of times that was my own fault, because when I was at university, I felt like when I looked back at it, I knew that I was very isolated when I was at uni, but when I look back now, I think to myself, it's not fair to like bitterly think that other people, like, I don't know, didn't try hard enough with me. Like, I feel like I never allowed people to get to know who I really was. I was like hiding my personality so much. I was like masking my personality so much that like people couldn't get close to me, people couldn't connect with me. And that's a real shame, because there were a lot of people I met at uni that were incredibly interesting and lovely and really fun people to be around. And I never really got to know them, and it's a real shame. And even people that I would say I was friends with, I don't feel like they really knew me, like really knew the real person that I am. So again, I always kind of felt like I kept them at arm's length to a degree. And that's how I often lived until recent years. So I'm really glad that things are different now. But yeah, if you're in that place now where you really don't have any friends, you don't really have any connections, you don't have any, and maybe you're feeling that loneliness of, there's a real loneliness of feeling at odds with people and feeling like you can't connect with people. I think for me a lot of that comes from being autistic, but I don't think it's a purely autistic experience. I think it can come from a lot of reasons. You know, I often think if you feel you're experiencing something that nobody else can understand, that is very isolating and very lonely. There's so many ways that loneliness can get into your system, that it can be there. It's not just one thing, usually one reason. So yeah, I think it's a really like prevalent issue, is that the right word? A really common issue that people face. I'm not going to say like, oh, it'll get better when you least expect it, because I'm not a huge fan of like comments like that, but I will say that things can change. They genuinely can. And like, for example, you know, I reconnected with a friend that I was really close with in college, like when I was about 17, 18. And for years we just kind of weren't friends. We just drifted apart. And for a number of times over the years, I thought about contacting her, and I know now that she thought about contacting me. But in the end, it took her contacting me first for us to reconnect. And basically, as soon as we did, we've been like really good friends ever since. I could have reached out and we could have maybe met even sooner, but I didn't, because I was like, I built up in my head that she wouldn't want to be bothered and she wouldn't want to be, you know, hanging out with me, and she didn't want to see me anymore. And it was all just a story I told myself of how things would be. But until you actually give it a go, you don't know the real situation. I mean, sometimes you do. Sometimes you know. Sometimes you can probably guess. But if you're unsure and you want to give something a go, I think go for it, and, you know, think about, is the risk that high? Probably. Maybe it isn't, and so go for it. Sorry, my camera ran out of battery, which is maybe a sign that it's saying to me, stop rambling on. But yeah, so yeah, overall this comic, it was just a little short comic to react to, just a bit of inspiration from that app that I was looking at. I was pleased with it in the end. So yeah, and I did enjoy doing like some little like slightly sinister tones to it, like on the main page with the original question. It actually says in small writing here, I can't really show it on here, but please select an answer or you'll face a £40 fine. Kind of like this company is kind of like you know, not as like rosy and brilliant as it seems. Yeah, I think it's like generally when I put things in this future that I envisage, it's like in some ways a like more positive future, but it also still has those kind of negatives and sort of like sinister aspects as well, which is kind of the way I think things are. Like there's often two sides to a lot of things. Yeah, I hope this has been like enjoyable to some degree, and maybe it's inspired you to make a comic. I do really believe that the most simple ideas can make the best stories sometimes. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I don't know what will be next. That's all a mystery, so I will see you next time for who knows what. Goodbye.